Hey everyone, Necroxis here. Let's have a little chat, shall we? This will be a little, I guess, React episode. So today I got up and I was checking Twitter, and there was a kind of a discussion going on regarding the potential for tier gear to be removed from LFR difficulties. And, you know, you have one side of the argument and you have the other side of the argument, and people were going back and forth. And so I was thinking about it, and I was wondering how I felt about this. And just a little background on my own personal WoW history. I've been playing since vanilla. I raided Molten Core, I raided Blackwing Lair, I raided AQ40. I got my guild before BC came out. We were pushing. We beat Twin Amps a couple times, and we were pushing forward, trying to get the Cthulhu. And then Nax came out, and we got through most of the Spiderwing. And before we killed the last boss, of Spiderwing, BC came out and we all switched. And then, you know, some other stuff happened and the guild kind of fell apart. But regardless to say, I'm bringing it up from a perspective of someone who has... If you want to bring up hardcore raiding in terms of time commitment, I would say that hardcore raiding probably was the most hardcore in vanilla, where you had to not only get 40 players, but you also had to spend 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in a dungeon to kill like 3 bosses maybe if you're learning. So that's not to say that future tiers are not harder. I actually think heroic raiding now is far more harder than in vanilla. But I'm just saying from a time perspective, that's where I'm coming from when I say my next piece. So in vanilla I did that. BC I didn't raid. Wrath I really didn't raid. Cataclysm I didn't raid a lot. And Mop I raided some. So the 3 expansions in between, it was just my choice. I just didn't feel like... I didn't have the time to commit, so I didn't do it, basically. I didn't try because I know I didn't have the time. So, getting back to the tier gear and LFR argument. You had both sides, and so I was thinking about how I felt about it, and I came to the conclusion that I don't see any legitimate reasons for removing tier gear from LFR that are outside of very petty and childish and kind of like, yeah, that's your place and you should know it kind of mentalities. I guess we can go a little bit more in depth and talk about the reasons some people are saying why it should be removed. And then I'll explain why I think those are bunk, basically. The first one that I've seen a lot of people after where's my camera? Camera, there. The first one that I've seen after I posted my opinion about it on Twitter was basically tier gear should be removed because it then gives incentive for players who are doing LFR to do harder difficulties because the gear reward is better. And that might be the most reasonable of the arguments, but it still fails to stand up to the test of logic, I guess, because that already is how the game works. By its nature, LFR is the easiest difficulty, and therefore the gear you get out of it, including the tier gear, is the lowest quality of all of the raiding gear in the game. Flex gear is higher, flex tier gear is higher, normal mode gear is better, normal mode tier gear is better. Heroic gear is the best, heroic tier gear is the best, and heroic also gets access to Warforged, which I assume, and they haven't said they're not doing it, is being transferred over, that the idea of Warforged, that is being kept going in Warlords of Draenor. So, the carrot on a stick that people like to say, that is already in the game. Not to mention that there are already pieces of gear that you can't get in LFR that you can get in other difficulties. The Tussa Manaroth from Garage. I don't even think you can get those in Flex even. I know that you can get them in normal and heroic. I've seen models, or I've seen the item before in both those difficulties. I'm not sure of Flex, but I know you can't get that in LFR. And then furthermore, the Garage has the heroic weapons that you cannot get in LFR. So I like that idea more, where it's you get special things that they've just introduced in higher difficulties that you can't get in LFR. Because tier gear has been in LFR since LFR has been a thing. It's different if they're like saying, we're going to introduce heirloom weapons, which have never been dropped from a boss in raiding before, and then they say, oh, but they only come from, you know, normal or heroic or flex or whatever. Then I'm like, okay, that makes sense. They're adding a new thing, and they're saying, here's the standard through which you can get it. Tier gear, if they changed it, they would be saying, here's something that you've been used to for years and years and years, at least what, 4 years now? And now we're changing it because. And like I said, I fail to see any reason that they're doing so other than to try and placate the people who do heroic raiding, or not even the people who do it, people who think that that's how it should be, and they sometimes don't even play the game anymore. And it's a special snowflake syndrome, basically. You're saying, I want to get stuff that other people can't get because. I guess, disregarding the fact that people who do LFR not only aren't heroic raiding with you because they don't have the gear to do it, you probably will never meet them, never even talk to them, and never even see them in the game, probably don't even play on the same server as the vast majority of them. There's no point that is not some petty childish bullshit that is a good reason for removing tier gear from LFR. And this is from someone who raided vanilla almost every single day when we were doing AQ 40 progression. Almost every day. And I just don't see the logic behind it. There is no logic other than I want this thing that you can't get, and you can't get it because you're not good enough. Yeah. And that just ignores the fact that a lot of people, myself included now, do LFR because that's how we want to see the end game. We don't have, or we don't want to put the time into doing heroic raiding, which is fine. I accept that I get lesser quality gear through doing this, and that's fine. I get the worst gear, but I get to still see the content. I still get to play it. I still get to fight, the bosses, and I guess the argument of, well, you can just go watch the cinematics on YouTube. That's not the same. I'm not playing the game. I'm sitting there watching something. And then, of course, from that you can say, well, are you really playing the game if you do LFR? You're just AFKing through it. That's bullshit. That's a vast over-exaggeration of how LFR actually works, because if you just had everyone AFKing through things, you wouldn't get past the first boss. You wouldn't even beat a Mercius. There has to be at least a good chunk of people who actually know what they're doing, or at the very least aren't sitting there doing nothing to get through the content in LFR. So, I don't understand. I just don't get it. And I guess the caveat to this is that Ian Hazakositz, or however you say his last name, the lead game designer on WoW, has come out when this conversation was taking place through some other people's Twitters and has said, let me read from here, quote, "Not sure we've announced anything about LFR loot yet. I've been working on a blog that will cover that subject and much more." And to me, that's not them denying it. That's them saying, wait until we explain why we're doing it. And there is no logical reason that they could say that would really win me over. I mean, if they make one and it comes out and I read it and it just blows me away and I'm like, okay, it totally makes sense, I'll come back and revise the statement. But I can't think of any reason other than we're trying to placate the elitist hardcore players, the 1% that we have lamented for years and years and years got to only see the content in vanilla and BC, and that's why we changed rating. We're trying to placate these people because they're complaining. That's what it seems like. And the funniest part is that the complainers in Wrath of the Lich King is why the vast majority of the Cataclysm features that now a lot of people complain about were implemented in the first place. Those people are the reasons that the Cataclysm heroics were harder. I personally like that they were harder. I didn't really care that they nerfed them, but I like that they were harder. But they did that because people were bitching in Wrath of the Lich King that it was too easy. And then Blizzard succumbs to what they want and makes the changes, and then they complain, Cataclysm's the worst expansion ever. And there's a lot of these people, there's just no winning with them. They want to go back to a model like vanilla was. When I was part of that community that rated that 1%, they want to go back to that model where 99% of the player base doesn't even get to see the end game because they're not worthy of it by some fucking arbitrary standard that they just make up on the spot. They want the LFR people to not get any really legitimate gear. There's some data mine stuff that there's going to be like an LFR set of gear in the game. This set hasn't been data mined to the point that we get stats on it yet, or that we know if there's set bonuses on it, but you can bet your ass if there are, they're far worse than they are in tier gear. And that's a major problem. If they are not equally as good in respective of the difficulty that it drops in, then I don't even see a point of it. If you have LFR without the tier gear, you don't have the set bonuses, and therefore it's almost to a point where it's not worth it. And then I guess if that's the point, then why do you have that difficulty at all? And then that can dovetail into a discussion about, well, in Warlords of Draenor, they're changing it, and LFR is supposed to be like Flex, but LFR still exists. If LFR is just basically being transferred from LFR here to Flex, I don't see they're not fixing anything. They're just moving the problems to Flex mode and making LFR totally irrelevant to the point that you could just remove it. And then if they did, you just have LFR normal, or excuse me, Flex, normal, heroic, and then mythic, or whatever. I can't remember. I think that's the order. So I don't. It gets to a point where you make LFR so terrible in terms of gear-wise, there's not even a point in doing it. I mean, is the logic, oh, well, you just get to see the content, but you don't have anything, nothing drops for you? I think if that's the idea, you're failing at a core point about MMOs, which is gear progression. Even if the progression is from heroic to LFR, it's still better gear in this model. I know right now it's not, but in this model. So I just don't get it. I don't see the logic to it. I'm still waiting for an actual argument. Let me check my Twitter while I'm doing this live to see if someone has given me one yet. Let's see. There's the fallacy. 25 people ignoring all the mechanics. Let's see. Apparently, the better gear is not good enough. There needs to be totally different models. Apparently, the color swaps aren't good enough, even though almost all of the colors for the harder difficulties are the better ones. There's the argument of it should be that way because that's how I feel, which isn't an argument. There's no logic to it. Let's see. There's one that says LFR is not real rating, just because they say so. That's about it. So I've yet to see any argument where someone tells me why LFR doesn't deserve tier gear that isn't, I want something that other people can't get because, yeah. Because these people are these people that I will never meet have gear that is worse than mine that I don't think they deserve because. So let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. I guess with the caveat like I was talking about with Ian Hazakozitz, they haven't announced anything yet, but from what we've data mined, that does seem to be the route they're going. Let me know what you think in the comments below about some couple of questions. 1, do you think LFR should have tier gear? 2, if not, why? Do you have a reason that isn't just because I don't think they deserve it? Is there any other reason you have besides that? Like I've already mentioned, there already is the carrot on a stick. You already do get better gear by progressing to harder difficulties. You know. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think about those 2 questions in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time for whatever we choose to look at next. More lore is coming. I'm working on the Ner'zhul episode right now. And yeah, I hope to get that out by the end of this week. So thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Farewell.